So a little over a year ago, I made this video talking about if the Canon R is still worth buying. And now that we're headed into 2026, this camera's kind of fallen behind a little bit. And it kind of begs the question, is it still worth it? With newer cameras like the Canon R5 Mark II and the R6 Mark II coming onto the scene, this camera does lack a lot of features that those other cameras have now. See, the Canon R came out all the way back in 2018 and it was discontinued in 2023. But the thing is, this is a mirrorless camera with a 30.3 megapixel sensor. That's pretty good, and it takes amazing stills, and it's really good for video. This is actually the camera that I do all of my videos on and all of my photography with. So it's still a good camera, but what exactly are we missing now? Let's start with the positives. I already mentioned that it has a 30.3 megapixel sensor, which is fantastic because if you like to crop your photos like I do, you can still crop in and retain so much detail. And to go along with that, it has a full frame sensor, which means better dynamic range. It also means that the camera's a bit bigger, but for me, I personally like that because I like having the ergonomics of a bigger camera. It's also got dual pixel autofocus, which is fantastic. And I'll show you a couple of my favorite photos that I've actually taken on this camera. This being a Canon camera means you have fantastic color science. A lot of people just buy Canons for the color science alone, but look at the detail in these photos. Look how crisp these photos look. It is a truly fantastic camera. Another thing to note is that the Canon R is weather sealed, so you don't have to worry about getting dust and water inside your camera on a crappy day or a day at the beach where you think you might end up hurting your camera. You don't really have to worry about that because this camera's sealed really well. It's meant to be used in outdoor conditions that are less than ideal, and especially if you pair it with EFL glass, which is weather sealed pro quality glass, you'll have nothing to worry about. Now let's talk about some features that you might miss. Like, this camera has no IBIS, which means the stabilization isn't as good as newer cameras, and to go along with that, ISO is usually better handled on newer cameras, although this camera does have a pretty good ISO range of around 100 to 40,000, which can be expanded up to 102,000. But yeah, unfortunately newer cameras, they do handle light a bit better, but this camera still is good. Like, look at these night shots that I took of the Milky Way. Next up, if you're really into videography, this might be a bit of a letdown because it does do 4K, but there's a caveat. It does it in a crop. Yeah, that's right. Unfortunately, if you want to shoot 4K on the Canon R, it'll punch in. You also can't shoot 120 frames with autofocus. It's kind of weird. So when there's a sub menu that you can enable 120 frames, but then you can't have autofocus. Like, the camera can shoot at 120 frames, but you have to go into a random sub menu, enable it, and then you have to manually focus everything, which is a little bit of a letdown, but it is what it is. Next up is if you're looking to do professional work with this camera. Obviously the camera looks fantastic, the video looks fantastic, but if you're a bit like me and you're a bit worried about maybe a corrupt card, this camera only has one card slot, and it's SD. Even though the read and write speed to the SD card is fantastic and it's fast, if it screws up, you're kind of out of luck because you have no backup whatsoever. Now, I know I'm sounding a bit negative, but I'm just trying to be realistic if you're honestly looking to buy this camera in 2026. But let's talk about this from a photographic point of view. It's still an amazing camera, like really an amazing camera. I shoot mostly landscapes, and this being a full frame sensor, you get that amazing dynamic range. It's really hard to beat this picture quality. You don't need the newest camera with all the features and everything to take a good photo. This camera does take phenomenal photos. And if you're worried about switching over to the RF line, like let's just say you have an older DSLR camera and you have all EF lenses, just get an EF to RF adapter, throw that on the front of your Canon R, and you'll have your EF glass working no problem. I even have the EF to RF adapter that has the control ring, so I actually get the functionality of RF glass on my Canon R body, even though I'm using EF lenses. Although I will be honest with you, I never used that control ring. I just never got around to doing it. Never really cared about it. There's also another feature about this camera that I can see being very useful for some people. Personally, I never used it, but on the back of the camera, there's a little, I don't even know what you would call it. It's like a little touch bar. It works like a slider, so like you can set it to different things. So if you want to control your ISO on that thumb slider, you can. However, I always noticed that my thumb would kind of move over there and I would accidentally touch it and either throw off my white balance or my ISO, whichever I had it set to at the time. But it can be really useful. I'm not hating on that feature. It's just, I think there's a reason why it never came back on the newer models of the R line. Just putting that out there. The thing is, you can pick up this camera for pretty cheap, and if you're willing to give up the certain features like 4K uncropped or IBIS, it's a pretty good camera. I would say this camera is 100% worth it if you're a photographer. If you're a videographer, it would be a good backup camera, but there are better options out there with 4K, 6K, 8K at all different frame rates. They just make more sense. And especially if you're doing like weddings and stuff where you're a bit worried about maybe having a card that failed. A lot of those other cameras have dual card slots, which I think is kind of necessary in a professional setting. But as a photographer, there's nothing wrong with this camera whatsoever. If you can find a good deal on this camera, I would say 100% pick it up. Don't go out and buy it new from Amazon for, I think it's 2,700 Canadian. Don't do that. Go on Kijiji, eBay, Craigslist and buy one for $900. If you're moving up from a DSLR crop sensor camera to a mirrorless camera that's full frame, this is a perfect starting camera for that. Put it this way, I've been using this camera pretty much since, I want to say, 2019, 2020, and it has never let me down. And trust me, I've dropped this camera more times than I'd like to admit, and it just works. It just keeps going. It has had some little quirks to it over the years, but nothing that's become detrimental or impacts my workflow at all. It has this one little bug that it started doing recently, and mind you, this camera came out in 2018. It is now almost 2026, and this is pretty much the only complaint I've had about it, and it only just started recently, where there will be times where I'm looking on the live view of the camera and it looks 1 to 2 stops darker on the LCD screen than the actual photo that I've taken. Why? I can't tell you. I have no clue, but it only just recently started doing that, but it's not really something that impacts me because 1 to 2 stops difference doesn't faze me at all. That's easily corrected, and it doesn't happen all the time. If you guys enjoyed this video, subscribe. I'd love to see you back here hanging out in another video, and check these videos out if you want to see more from me. All right, you guys have a good one. Peace.